Our little boy is 4 years old and quite a little man. So we spell out the words we don't want him to understand, like T-O-Y or maybe S-U-R-P-R-I-S-E. But the words we're hiding from him now tear the heart right out of me. D-I-V-O-R-C-E. What a truly blunt, painful masterpiece written by Bobby Braddock and of course sung by the mother of all Tammys, Tammy Wynette. Divorce has been legal for over 150 years, but only common in our society for maybe the last 40 years or so now. My parents' divorce finalized in 1978, I think. So I was about 4 years old. Therefore, my memories are like a foggy, murky peak through a cracked lens. Fortunately, I've been thoroughly brainwashed by my mother's version of it, and my father has put on a spotless Oscar-winning performance, acting like his first marriage never really happened. I thought that a unique approach to this topic would be to recognize the affirmative results of divorce. Everyone generally dwells on the negative things that happen after estrangement, like the custody battles, the money wrestling, and the general fallout with family and friends. But I'd like to point out the clear-cut benefits of duplicity. Positive attributes of divorce. Number 1, double or maybe even triple the gifts at birthdays, holidays, etc. Right? Maybe for the first year or so after our parents split, my sister and I got a little extra attention via guilt from grandparents, uncles, aunts, and friends of my parents. But after the dust settled, everyone had to make a choice, choose a side, and finalize who they were going to inevitably spend time supporting. As a child in the middle of divorce, you pretty much just become something or someone everyone feels sorry for. And you never really get to bounce back from that, especially when your mother never quite bounces back from her divorce. Positive attribute of divorce number 2. New brothers and sisters. New stepmoms and dads. For every positive, there is a negative, and in this case, I feel like I've gained an amazing new mom and a couple of first-rate siblings from this wonderful divorce. I can't really picture it any other way. It's fairly hard to believe that our parents were ever together in the first place, as they don't seem like much of a match in hindsight. Positive attribute of divorce number 3. You get to travel. It's true you get to travel back and forth between mom and dad's new digs, which in our case was from the south side of Edmonton to a farmhouse near Wetaskiwin, Alberta. Plus, you also get to travel back and forth to see various therapists and pharmacists because everyone thinks there is something terribly wrong with you when your parents split up. I almost wonder if somehow everyone could just play it cool during a divorce and not cry and carry on and spaz out on each other, that the kids wouldn't even really be that confused as to why Dada isn't living with Mama anymore. Why is divorce so wrong to a couple of atheists anyhow? Plus, it was 1978. Was there even such a thing like monogamy in the 70s? Wasn't everyone covered in fondue and cocaine banging each other at key parties? Positive attribute of divorce number 4. Double down on your parents' chances of being rich and growing up a spoiled, entitled little brat. Wrong. Here's what happens. Yes, usually your parents will remarry and evolve financially during their new lives, but guess what? If you ask either side for money or a loan or casually wait around for them to notice or support your aspirations, you was pretty much the biggest beggar on the planet. Meanwhile, the children born from the second marriages get copies of their parents' credit cards, debit cards, new cars, trips to warm destinations, family reunions, weddings, fully financed trips home for the holidays. But if you ask for a hand with a few groceries, then you can just go fuck yourself, you creepy little mooch. I know divorce is no joke, but I don't think the kids of divorce are more screwed up than the ones that had to watch their parents fight, cheat, and make up every 13th weekend. I just think that we deserved a chance to be messed up and manipulated on our own terms. by both of our parents working as a team to damage our social skills and prosperous futures. Not working across from each other like rival lesbian coaches at a 35-year-long playoff ringette game. I've seen pictures of myself and Steph when we were babies. We were good-looking babies. We were sweet, sweet kids. Probably the most photogenic babies this side of Camrose. Why couldn't our faultlessness and serenity keep Mommy and Daddy together? Check-in hosted by Steph for about 5 or 10 minutes here.
Okay. My weekly check-in is that I graduated.
Woo!
2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I don't believe you even went to law school.
That's legit. Neither do I, actually. But I did.
We're proud of you.
Thanks.
Very proud.
Yeah, I am proud of you.
Oh, that's nice.
Considering I'm a criminal, this is really going to help out my future.
It is going to help you out. And considering criminal law was something I understood, that's even better for you.
Fantastic.
Good thing you're not bankrupt, because that would be a problem.
I will be after paying you.
Pay me? No, I'll give you my friends and family rate.
Okay.
Only $250 an hour. So I went back to grad, and this was kind of a big decision because I was here for the last year of school in Edmonton. But I wanted to go back and graduate with the people that I did the first 2 years of law school with, because I thought it would be really important, because we've been through a thing together, you know, like that kind of first year is hard and you don't know what's going on, and you make these intense friendships with people based on fear and competition, and who cries, they form a group, who drinks too much, they form a group, and so on.
Cliques in high school, eh?
It is like that. Yeah, very much. So second year, when I was commuting back and forth, that was a good year that I developed some friendships, because when my kids and are around, I'm going home like I want to, right? But when I was there on my own, I visited Shy and his family, and then I had a couple friends I did things with. So
yeah, you didn't have a place to really entertain.
No. And I mean, the kind of shenanigans that those guys are up to are 25-year-old shenanigans, right? So I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to bring my husband out to that because, well, I'm just assuming he doesn't want to. I don't know. I just didn't do it.
He doesn't like green beer?
I know. We did that. And that's hilarious that you mentioned that, because in first year, that was the one event we actually did, was we went to the St. Patrick's Day pub crawl on Broadway, which involved... And there are a lot of bars on Broadway. You wouldn't think so, but there were a lot. So anyway,
there's 10.
Yeah, we did that. And anyway, so I went back to this grad thinking that it would be really significant and fantastic, and I would get to see some of these people that I bonded with, and I have a lot of feelings, right, all the time. Like, I've determined now that every sociopath who was not given feelings, I got their feelings, right? So I'm feeling all this stuff, and it's conflicted because I feel like it's a huge accomplishment, and I want to talk with all the people that were in my section that I felt like were really there for me, and I felt like I was there for them. And I get to this grad, and first of all, no one even knows that I wasn't there for third year. Okay? At all. They're like, hey, haven't seen you in a while.
Have been busy.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I wasn't here for the whole year. Really? So that was the first part that was like, oh, this probably isn't going to go the way I hoped.
The first sign. Hey?
That's no surprise, though, because, like, out here, I see people less than I saw them when I lived in Saskatoon who live out here.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because they like people don't make an effort, right? And like, or they're busy or whatever. Like
Nobody gives a shit.
Yeah, it's unless you go to the same pub or something, and like you have like a meeting spot, or you walk down the same trendy area of town. You just don't, like I'm just not going to run into those people.
No,
So
I know, but
yeah,
this is kind of like it's not big at the law school in Saskatchewan. It's sort of like one giant room with some classrooms off of it. And so you're crossing paths with people a lot. Mm-hmm. So to have people really really did not notice that I wasn't even there was sort of...
Do you have new glasses?
Exactly. It was sort of shocking. Well, it wasn't
crazy.
Shocking. It was just sort of like, oh, it was...
Disappointing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And leveling in a particular way. So then I also sort of had a handful of people that I thought I was, friends with.
Right.
And they're scattered at various tables. And when I would see them, I was so happy to see them. And I was look at our accomplishment. So good to see you. And I just got like the brush off constantly, like, oh, hey, yeah, congratulations. Okay, sit back down again with their friends. And I thought, oh, this
because of 1 year.
Well, no, I honestly think that probably there was nothing there in the first place. And just, again, it's this problem of me having way too many, sensitive feelings about who I'm bonding with. Or I think I bond with people who don't bond with me. And I think we're bonded.
Yeah, they might feel the same way, though, right?
Probably they aren't. I mean, I kind of get that sense that they're just sort of...
Maybe they're mad at you because you were gone for a year. And you didn't call them or contact them outside of it.
Maybe. I think it's more an age issue that I feel their age still inside, but I'm not on the outside. And that's a big deal when you're 24. 40 is ancient. And so looking at me, so it was a very, very strange and really anticlimactic. And I was sort of, I left thinking... I could have gone to like a work retreat this weekend. I should have done that instead.
So was there anybody with a warm embrace?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I got to see a couple of professors who were really, really good to me and had a nice conversation with them. And then the people I sat with are my friends, right? That I had a good time with them. But there was this weird tension because was coming with me and... I'm old already. He's 15 years older than me. He was extremely self-conscious about the fact that he was going to come to this thing and everyone was going to think he was my dad.
It's like when he comes out to the bar with me. Everybody's like, is that your dad and your mom?
Yeah.
Like,
oh, yeah.
No,
I get called Greg's mom.
It's my
sister. That's happened to me twice.
Sorry, I love that.
I know. It's just... Anyway... So there was that sort of weird tension on top of all of the other weirdness. And and then it was just this strangely anticlimactic thing. But it was good to say goodbye to Saskatoon, to sort of say, fuck you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you and good night.
Yes. So, that was my grad. And I don't know, I feel so bummed because I think I feel so strongly that I've never had that kind of youthful, celebratory graduation experience in my life.
Right.
Even in high school, I moved out. Mm-hmm. And so graduating from high school was just like, good. Now I can get on with my life.
Here's a bus pass. Congratulations.
Right. Well, it was just, I was already living with S and I didn't go to my big grad party. And so then...
We call him Featherhawk.
Featherhawk. I was living with Featherhawk. Yeah. And then same with I just feel like I've missed the boat every time. I'm just going 10 years too late all the time. So I don't know. It was weird.
You should have invited us. It would have been a party then.
I know. Well, that was the other thing is because now Shuyler's not in Saskatoon. That changes things, right?
For sure.
Because when we would go back there, we always had that. But no,
and
now
there's
it's
strength in numbers once
soulless.
again.
Yeah. But I'm going to have a big summer solstice grad party
Yeah, and those are all your friends, right?
And those will be all my friends.
But you might as well surround yourself with the people that you actually like rather than wanting people to maybe accept you for who you are rather than having those people that already do.
I know. But you got to do that weird initiation tradition thing because, well, I'm changing my mind maybe about that. Because normally I just sort of turn my nose up at that kind of thing. But then I thought, well, this is kind of, I should do this. It's the dinner and the speeches and all of that.
I think we get walked into that our whole kind of life, though.
Yeah.
That we should expect that there should be some sort of celebration at the end.
It's like New Year's Eve. You just think that...
Yes, exactly.
You're like, there's all this build up, and then you're like, well, that's it. I'm sick. I ate too many cheese fries, and now I'm just throwing up into this bucket like some red liquid that was in my shooters or whatever. Greg, so you've got some new bees.
Yeah, we ordered, we got 100 new hives from New Zealand.
Yeah.
And so we set them up over the past 2 weeks. They came kind of in an interval of 85 hives and then another 15. And they come in a cardboard tube with 2 plastic perforated ends.
Do they like give them some like...
You think they would just fly from New Zealand themselves?
Bee pills?
No.
And then you wake them up?
No, well, they killed the first shipment of 1,000 because they didn't put them in a cooler because they produce too much heat that the moron on the New Zealand airline cargo plane didn't bother to put them in there.
Do you even have to say moron in front of any sort of airline person anymore? I mean...
Moron person.
No, I mean like...
In general?
All of them are morons
This
now.
one obviously especially was.
Right?
And hopefully he doesn't have to pay for it because he's going to be in big trouble.
That'd be a terrible way to die.
What's the ideal bee temperature?
For transportation?
Yeah, like what is it? Like
Well,
-5 or
No,
+5?
but I'd imagine, well, that's a good question. I don't know exactly. I would
It's
imagine
cryogenic.
somewhere around 0.
Dry ice.
A full hive will produce a lot of heat, as many BTUs almost as a cow.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So they produce a lot of heat. Anyway, so needless to say, this guy killed them. So we had to wait another extra week.
And we can't even eat the bees. They're so useless.
You can eat them. They're full of protein. You just get stung in the mouth every time.
Do they taste like steak?
They taste like kind of like poo.
They taste like poo. Oh, well. Now you're talking.
How do you know what poo tastes like?
Because of Steph's toilet.
Oh, yeah.
Duh.
Okay.
The poo hit you in the bum and then
There's
you ate
still
the
some
poo?
residue. No, it hit me.
Good Lord.
Well, I'm just trying to understand.
I don't know how that happens. Anyways.
No, he's a
Sound bite.
And do the bees have New Zealand accents?
No, they don't. No.
Ahoy, matey.
Is that New Zealand?
That's a pirate bee.
That's a pirate bee?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Except all my accents sound like my own voice.
Can you give me a New Zealand accent?
No.
Try.
Just say Russell Crowe. I want to hear you say Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
No.
Hey, no, I have a better word. Beets? Fince.
You German?
Oh, yeah. How about Brit from
Brit?
Flight of the Conchords?
Brit?
Is she from Australia or New Zealand or Tasmania?
That's from New Zealand.
Oh, okay.
Brit.
It's
but
actually
it's Brett.
South Africa.
But it's Brit.
South Africa.
Yeah, is very similar to New Zealand.
It is.
Like it's a tough one because my landlord, there's lots of South African British people on the North Shore.
African.
They call me Steve.
Yeah, exactly.
They do.
Stiff.
Don't you remember?
You make me stiff.
No, just.
Is that what they say? Because they're pervs too, right?
I haven't
That was
had
kind of-
that direct experience, but maybe they say that. Do you remember? They were from South Africa, and her coached.
You're allowed to say names on the show.
Do you remember?
Oh, I guess you can beep that out.
She's
you
a
remember
commercial
OP?
actress.
Yeah, I know.
Doesn't matter.
She's famous.
She's famous now doing Metamucil commercials. So,
And Swiffer Sweeper.
and with how crazy was that? 2 people I go to junior high with end up in the same commercial together.
Really?
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Her parents coached me in soccer, and her mom would always call the girls on the other team when we were in, grade 7, she'd be like, that beach, stiff. Get back out there to get that beach. Anyway,
awesome.
and okay, carry on.
So bees, yeah, back to the bees.
What do their buzzes sound like with accents? Buzz.
That's actually pretty funny. That was pretty funny.
Thanks.
I give that like a 6.9 on the Steph scale of comedy.
That's pretty good for me.
So you got the new bees.
I got new bees.
Have you integrated them into the into the hive yet? Like
You don't really
mix them with the other bees, or
don't
what do you do?
that. You don't. You don't.
He just puts them in the prison yard together and just
you
lets
keep
all
them
hell break
all of them separate. Each hive goes into its own brood chamber, which
Yeah.
is the box that you see in the yards. There's usually 2 of them. And anyway, so we dump the bees, and you got to do it late in the day so they don't fly off when it's nice and cold, so they don't want to go anywhere. So me and my wife and some of her family and friends came out to do that because it takes a few hours. Oh, nice. Cadbury egg.
We're eating a cream egg.
You think I'd be able to see that, but instead I just have a picture of the roof. Now I just saw that. Yeah.
Yum.
So no like nobody got stung bad, like there was no
No, I don't think
like
that thing got
physical comedy that went on.
No, it's usually pretty.
They're from New Zealand. They're going to be nice bees.
They're actually pretty nice bees. They're a lot
Yeah.
nicer than the Australian bees I got last
Right.
time. And the
No big
Australian bees
surprise
try to
there.
like bang everything. You know, when they came out of the hive, they were just like on top of every other object trying to.
Just
Really?
like they are when they come to Canada.
Yeah, exactly.
And they spread their STDs around
there, matey.
around
Anyways,
the hostile towns, of Western Canada.
Earlston Palace.
Earlston Palace.
And Earlston Palace. Actually, one
actually
of the biggest
Marmot.
issues.
And Marmot.
Yeah.
One of the biggest issues on the West Coast here right now is that Australians take all our fucking jobs at ski resorts.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
You
Every
guys have-
tour guide is Australian.
You
It's
guys
like-
have ski resorts?
I've got 3 right behind my house.
Really?
Yeah, there's like Mount Seymour.
Do you guys
Grouse
ski
Mountain.
on like cardboard boxes?
I
Just
don't
snow?
ski. I'm not a skier.
Gross Mountain.
Because this is going to be...
Yeah, the bees have been set up and they're looking good for the year, and hopefully they just produce a lot of honey. Hey?
Oh, good one, eh? Stay-at-home dads. So, as some people might know, most people not, since we moved to North Vancouver, I'm mostly a stay-at-home dad. Although I still tell people I'm an artist or a musician when they ask me, because
You are.
I just love to see their face, like when it's like, yeah, right. Nobody's an artist. Nobody makes money doing that. It's like, well, I make some money doing that. There's good years and there's bad years, and then they look at you like,
And to all
"Yeah,
those,
but what do you do for work?"
but to all those
and
people that
and
say
then-
that, go fuck yourself. Thank you. You can edit that
okay.
out.
No, I can keep that. I like that. I'm gonna put lots of delay on it. Anyhow, so we have 4 kids, and we have a 2-year-old, which is like having 4 kids. And so I'm a stay-at-home dad. So what I found. So do you guys have any questions about stay-at-home daddying? Or is this? Am I fucking monologuing here about this?
No, I think that we should talk about this seriously in the context of
okay.
shifting cultural paradigms.
Right. Yes.
I
how,
know.
How do you think you fit in society now as a stay-home dad, and how does that represent your masculinity, I guess?
Well, as
I
masculine, I can see his big hairy chest in the monitor.
That's the old school masculinity.
I think there's a lot. I mean, there's definitely out here. There's a lot of stay-at-home dads. There was quite a few in Saskatoon, at least part-time. You know, like it happens year on, year off kind of thing with some people. I still can't shake the guilt of not going and sitting at a desk or something every day. Like when I was working in Saskatoon, like I still had a full-time job, and I kind of crave just that, even though that didn't define me. Like that, working at a desk at a government job didn't define me. It's just telling people you're an artist and a stay-at-home dad is a drag. I mean, that's just, it's like, well, because all people care about is money and how much money you make. And especially if you show up on the West Coast, they're like, well, how do you make your money? This is how I make my money. We're all here because we have money. But or like that, at least on a family like kind of level, like when people have kids and they're sort of going to school and you're rubbing elbows with parents that are like 15 years older than you. Mostly they're all really established, right? Like they're fucking driving Mercedes and BMWs, and they're all upper middle class or higher, and you're still like,
and I mean upper middle class where you live is quite wealthy compared to the rest of the country, right?
I think so. I mean, I don't know if these, like it's hard to say. I think there's a lot of family money, right? Like there's a lot of people that ended up out here when it was reasonable and now it's not. So people just think you're crazy if you show up here now, and they think, well, he must be like some .com millionaire, or like, I mean, how else would this like bearded troll be able to live out here? And then you tell them basically that it's, your wife is the man of the house and you are the mother. That's it. Yeah.
Do you find that people, will they harp on that? Will they give you a hard time about it? People that you don't know, besides your friends and family that
if they harped on it, it'd be great, because then you could like actually discuss it.
So you can't even defend yourself. It's more of a look that you're defending yourself.
Yeah, right. If somebody,
you don't even, I mean, there's no accusation, but every question is the accusation, right? It's how the conversation goes that tells you where the person is actually coming from. And I mean, I think this is really interesting, because I think that with rules that are shifting now between men and women, even when I stayed at home with the kids and would have work functions that I would go to, I remember feeling so self-conscious, because now work functions are not just a bunch of successful guys in suits and their wives, and then the wives mingle together and talk about their kids. I mean, women are the executives now. Yeah. And when I would go, and I didn't have a university degree, and I was at home with my kids, and I would talk to a lot of these women, and they would say, what do you do? And I say, I stayed home with my kids. Shut down. Just back turn, like, I got better things to do than to talk to you. Yeah. And so I think that those are comparable sort of experiences. And so I have a lot of empathy, because I get where you're coming from. And what's really bad now is that for you've always been an artist. You've always been making music. You've always been creating in some way, no matter where you were situated in life. And I've never had that in my life. I mean, my sort of existence has been not defined through something which I think is really clear for you. I mean, you've always had that going on. And I've never really had the thing going on where, okay, I'm doing this job in a coffee shop, but really this is what my passion is. Right. So now I feel that this is worse now for me, trying to, like graduating from law school and going to have a career now. I'm more miserable than when I was before, and felt miserable, hilariously, because I wanted to contribute to society somehow. As the kids get older, and I'm going to wonder how you feel about this, Shy, as your youngest gets older, what's going to change for you in terms of, how you feel when that starts happening versus now? Because I felt okay justifying being at home with the kids because that was work you were doing there, and it was legitimate, and you're producing people, and people are important, and you're going to unleash them on the world, and they're citizens, and you want to raise good citizens. So I had pride in that even when I got scoffed at.
Yeah, and you wanted to make up for a dysfunctional family that you came from.
Exactly.
And define it, something different, right? Or lead with a different foot.
It's kind of revenge on the divorced family or something, like to have a marriage that stays together and to have kids and all that, and then a career. But and I think and nowadays, I mean, it's like most people don't have a choice but to have both people have a career because I think the status quo or whatever is just so like it's so much higher, or like there's so much more expected of people. It's like you can't just like, if you're a kind of person, say, that lives in Nelson and like just wants to live off the land, it's like, what do you do for work? It's like I don't know, I paint, I write, I hang out, but I just feed myself and I chop my own wood and I do this and I do that. That's not acceptable to society because they've made this, like, it's sort of made this thing where it's like, no, you must have a dream, a career, and you must be striving for both simultaneously while working your ass off. It's like, well, what's wrong with just like not doing anything but like growing cabbage or something, like what's that's how I get it as I get older. I'm kind of like, I'd rather just be like fucking growing peas and like, making my homemade wine or something.
And the irony to that, I think, is that is masculinity. People that live off the land, and they've totally relabeled that and obviously shifted that on men. I'm not the same conversation fully, but I mean, for someone that works hard and produces their own food or hunts and traps or, lives in a small cabin with solar power is kind of looked at as
Unabomber.
Yeah, as a Unabomber, or you're poor, or you're uneducated, or why would you be doing that? Why aren't you being productive? And there seems to be...
you have mental illness or something, yeah.
Well, there's too much emphasis on production in the sense that we don't need, or we don't seem to know our cap, and we don't know when to stop. We don't need to... Well, that's the plight of man, right?
What's the tangible thing that you're producing, though? Like, that's my question all the time. To say to you, as somebody who is farming and bee farming... You are literally producing something tangible. I mean, look,
Absolutely.
Here's my honey. And I think that so few of us are able to say that. You go to jobs. And I mean, I had a summer job last year for 4 months. Great experience. But I have to say, I mean, I was gobsmacked by sort of the redundancy and... just shocking amount of nothing that happens in an office that is turned into this kind of like, oh, I'm in Scotia Place and I'm working on this high floor and I have my own office, and then I sit at the desk and I'm like, I'm doing nothing here at all.
We went to get like a loan, right? Or a line of credit. And we met with the manager of the bank, and she says, well, first of all, we need to know, are you willing to grow? And I'm like, well, what do you mean by that? She goes, we want a business that is growing and expanding.
You should have said, I'm a grower, not a shower.
Let's
do this.
And the truth is revealed. And my question was, well, why? Like, why do I need to be growing? If I'm paying my bills, I can understand why you want us to grow, but ask yourself that question. Why do you want us to grow? Because your bank wants more money. But maybe it's sustainable for me to do this. Maybe I don't need to be bigger than this. Maybe I don't need millions of dollars to live. Maybe I found a way through educating myself with my hands or any other, ability to produce what I need.
Yeah, and that's basically, the problem is there's somebody always to buy. If you do spit out a real product, there's always somebody who will buy it, like in metaphorically speaking.
For sure.
So it's like the world doesn't need any more, honey right now because there's like warehouses full of honey, which I know there isn't. But even then, people would still produce honey because they'd be like, well, what happens if all that honey goes bad? Or even though honey doesn't go bad, right? Like, it's like people just keep consuming, so people keep producing. And I think So that's why it's sort of unacceptable for you to be like, well, we're self-sustainable. Like we have this much free time. We get to travel. We get to do this. We go to the market on Saturdays. You know, it's like that's just not right. Like you should be trying to grow and have a storefront, and then
exactly.
You know,
and they like I've been approached by a venture capitalist asking what my plans are for the future of our business, and this is the plan. Maybe we want to have another market, you know, just so we can buy land and have our own house and property. But that's my incentive, and that's my only incentive. And I find that it's weird that certain things are totally embraced now. Like the whole artisan thing is totally embraced. Again, and maybe it never disappeared, but you can go to these massive craft fairs and people are taken seriously as bead makers, or they make cutting boards or their own t-shirts and screening. Meanwhile, musicians, like you were talking about earlier, don't. Is that your hobby? Is that your hobby? How many times have you heard that? Well, no, in Shuyler's case, plays every day probably, and has however many records.
Because it lacks tangibility in some way.
Well, they need the enterprise of money attached to it to even comprehend the fact that it's productive.
I don't know if that's necessarily only true though, because as you're talking, I'm thinking about how just from
beautiful my mustache is.
Yes. I can't really see it because of the screen, but I'm sure it's amazing. Just how from the historical perspective, our waking life was surviving. Mm-hmm. So we've evolved from something else. And I mean, I think about it just in the context of having children. I mean, all of us have children now, except you. You need to have children.
Sorry. All of us
Sorry.
have children except for
you.
Greg.
Except for Greg.
And
I was looking at Scott, that's why.
millions
And I
of
was sort
other
of
people.
like doing
But
this.
I
and
will
I'm like,
always
no.
be here to protect all your children.
But no, and I'm grateful.
it's true.
Okay, sorry. That was a mistake. However, I'm thinking about it in the context of the amount of free time that parents have when in the past, feeding ourselves is a primary thing. So working the fields, making dinner, cleaning up from dinner, starting to make lunch, cleaning up from that, and so on. I mean, you're just busy till you fall into bed. We have so much available time now that we fill it with crap that now we've started to define as being productive.
Right.
And so it's almost like you have something to show for it. And I realized it the other day where I want to accomplish something in this 2 months before I start my job in July. I want to get some writing done. That's very important to me. Sit down in front of my computer and I get nothing done, but I'm in front of my computer. So does it matter if I'm looking on Anthropology and reading gossip magazines, whatever, on the computer? There's something strangely, psychologically convincing that, I'm producing right now because I'm at a desk. And that's what we've evolved to that I think is so weird. And it makes me almost feel like nihilistic to a point of wanting to bang my head against a wall because nothing is happening. So I think what's really interesting.
That's hardly nihilistic.
It's sort of nihilistic. Is it a bit
Banging
dramatic?
your head against a wall? That's not
until
even
it
close
smashes
to being a
into
nihilist. You're
nothingness.
not a nihilist unless you are doing something way more violent than that.
Okay, stabbing myself in the stomach.
Yeah, with
But that explains also
a pen.
the lack
Yes.
Will that do?
of family bonding or family nature. The fact is that when people used to have to farm and work and provide for their family, their children were involved. They had to
the
be.
reason you had children was to keep yourselves alive, really. You keep yourself, your family
at the very
alive.
basic primal level.
They're working.
And plus, they didn't know how children were made back then. I mean, they used to just chuck their sperm into the wind, and children would show up.
And a bird
So
would
it
drop
was-
one down the chimney.
It's a two-way street.
Yeah.
I think obviously there's families that love their kids and were happy to have kids, and I'm sure those that had kids to work, absolutely, and they went hand in hand.
No, but you can love your kid and have your kid to work. Like, it's a survival thing.
But that's what I'm saying, is that those kids were always there with them, side by side. So
Yes.
you were rearing them. You were raising them.
Yeah.
Women did certain specific work, men did, and they cross-pollinate. They
And
did
I do
both,
that
right?
now with my kids in a very serious way. I'm like, here's your
Absolutely,
Facebook privacy settings. Here's how you set that.
Your sperm in the wind was funny. Can you smile? Why is your face so grouchy today? Look at you. Yeah, there you go. There's that
sorry.
beauty. Oh yeah, this is Shuyler's topic,
I know this
right?
is your weekly
let us
check-in.
answer this
It's
one.
it's going well.
We got the weekly check-in done. I think
Okay.
we're good. We got
Okay.
a good.
Stories from Wabamun.
My gang, the Predators. Well, it's more of a confession, really. There was this family at the end of our gravel road from our cabin. A white trash hillbilly home with garbage littered all over the property, and a vicious dog that would run towards you until the chains strangled it into submission. That's if the dad didn't kick it first. He was real mean. Reminded me of a racist cop from the southern states, maybe from a movie like Mississippi Burning, or something along those lines. A county cop. Carried a .357 Magnum and wanted everybody to know it, and sure liked playing the part. His son, who was obviously the product of years of conditioning, was our local menace. His name was Jamie. Brownish red hair, freckled forehead, and an attitude to fit a psychopath. He loved to pick fights with my friend Jono and I, and then run to the end of the road to find protection behind his rabid dog. Around the same time, Jono and I formed our new gang, the Predators. Now, with the strength of two and a real sweet name, we could conspire how to get him back. It all fell into place one afternoon when we were rolling up black tea to make our own cigarettes. We were at the base of Jono's cabin in the forest, on the biggest hill overlooking the lake. The train tracks ran at the bottom of our lookout, with an old grown-in railroad beside them. I remember seeing him through the swaying poplar trees. We commando crawled on our bellies from the tree line to the long grass in the middle of the hill. We put out our black tea smokes. Jamie's mouth was flapping like a palm tree in a hurricane, flapping at his towny buddy, as they walked facing us about 40 yards down. It occurs to us what we have in our possession, and our eyes sparkle with enjoyment. He hands it to me, and I am overjoyed. His pre-pumped pump-action Daisy BB gun, Model 25, featuring an all-steel receiver and barrel with an alloy grip, standard adjustable sight, walnut-stained hardwood butt, and a velocity of 350 feet per second. Well, I had that thing sighted on Jamie's head before you could say grassy knoll. His stupid face now being sniffed out by the nose of the gun. The smell of WD-40 from the freshly oiled trigger. Cattails rustling together. And after Jono points it out, I compensate for the breeze. I took a long, deep breath, like we taught ourselves in sniper training. Poof! The butt of the gun kicks my shoulder like a gummy bear. The sound of the gun like a baby fart. And then the cry of a young girl. No, 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 not a young girl. I dropped him like a doggy bag. The BB wrapped off his stupid forehead, his hands smothering his face like he was trying to put out a fire. His eyes looking frantically around, trying to make sense of what happened. The Predators are what happened. That's what happened.
Okay, wrap up. Travel tips.
Travel tips, yeah. So I was traveling this past weekend with my two daughters to Los Angeles. And on our way home, which is a direct flight that lasts 2 hours and 48 minutes, we were behind this family, and the dad was a squirrel. So my travel tip this week is don't be a squirrel. The first thing he says to his teenage son is, in line, did you go to the bathroom? And the teenage son looks like, I can't tell ages of kids. He's somewhere in between 12 and 15. Says no. And the dad loses it. Like, he's so angry at him.
So why is he a squirrel then?
Because he's so squirrely. Like, he's micromanaging everyone and he's dancing around.
Oh,
and
I
he's
thought you were talking about his bladder.
No, like he's a squirrel. He's asking don't be a squirrel. Don't sit in your chair and do this with your leg for the whole flight, which a guy did behind me, like a dog scratching himself, bumping his knee against my chair the whole entire way. Like, chill out. Do what I do. Take 2 Dramamine, suck back a glass of wine, get on the plane, have a nice flight.
1 glass of wine? Are you lying?
No, I'm not lying. 1 is enough. If you take 2 Dramamine, 1 glass of wine is enough. Trust me.
What happens if you do it at the same time?
What? That I take the Dramamine with the wine.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
you don't have time to have a second glass?
Well, usually I'm doing that on the plane.
So was this before the plane?
This, in this case, was before the plane. And then you're super stoned. And then you say to yourself,
This is perfect.
I could die now. I don't care if the plane goes down. Whee! That's what I'm like the whole way. I laugh when we go through turbulence. It's like an experience. Okay. That's a travel. Actually, maybe that's my real travel tip. 2 Dramamine and a glass of wine.
That's the travel tip we're looking for.
All right.
Something that gets you through.
Exactly, but you can only purchase Dramamine in the States, so you got to load up when you're down there.
Yeah.
Well, I bought
Because Gravol's inferior.
Gravol doesn't even work.
It doesn't even work. You should do a mail order Craigslist Dramamine dealer kind of thing.
I might.
Give me some Dramamine.
My wife's co-worker, I won't mention any names, but when they were coming back,
Bethany?
yeah, it's Bailey. When they were coming back from Denver or somewhere, I don't know where they were. Yeah, I think it was from Denver, and so this guy had loaded up on his like version of 2 Dramamine and wine, thinking they're about to get on a plane. He was just going to pass out for 3 hours. And then the flight was delayed. So he was like this like drooling kind of vegetable that she had to drag around the airport while he like slurred and he was like, where are we? Because he took something much better than Dramamine. And
Oh, that's excellent.
and eventually was just like pushing him like towards the desk. She's like, just deal with it yourself, man. Like, and then he'd like sit there and kind of like pull his phone out and then sort of fall asleep. And so make sure that you're on the plane
when you do this.
When you do this.
No, this makes me laugh so hard because I had a road trip exactly like that where it's the girls and I think we went to Banff or something. And we're coming back, and I don't know what's wrong. I have a headache or something, so I've taken a Dramamine.
Hangover.
Probably a hangover. So I take a Dramamine, and then like, okay, well that's good, but that's gonna make your headache worse, right? Because it's a huge antihistamine. It's just gonna dry you out. So take Tylenol with codeine as well for your headache. So I take that, and I just have it with water, and that experience exactly happens in the car, right? So I'm just like a mess, and I'm like doing that sleep where you're just like a dead hang, right? And then we get to, I don't know, Olds or something, and we're going to stop and get some lunch. And so it kind of wakes me up, and I just sort of like sloth into the restaurant, and we get to the front and we order, and the guy's like, okay, that's, I don't know, $15.86, and puts down a 20, and I'm like, I have 86 cents. And then I pull out this change purse. And I am so determined to count out this 86 cents. Like, just like, really don't worry about it. And I'm like, I have 86 cents. And I'm really mad, right? And he's like, okay. And the guy's standing and looking, and I'm just like, dimes and pennies. And it's just such a nightmare. And so mad at me. He's like, why are you acting like such a lunatic? I'm like, I am on God, like I am whacked on drugs. Like it was so bad. It just, not a good, like you have to find that good place.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
It just shows how backwards it is that
Just
you can
cut
get
that
on
whole
the
story out.
on the plane with 200 Dramamine, but if you come on with a half a joint in your pocket,
I
you're going to
know.
go to prison for 25 years.
Well,
Yeah,
I-
man. Like weed should be like for everybody to share.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
weed
good point,
doesn't
Shuyler.
do what
Thank you.
Dramamine does.
What's that?
Weed doesn't do what Dramamine does.
It's not as good as Dramamine.
Yeah, that's true.
That's what it sounds like to me.
No, Dramamine's like that's a different, weed is a different thing than Dramamine.
I don't know. Have
like,
you guys
I
ever
just go.
smoked like?
I just go for the high.
You guys ever smoked like
Aspirin?
Mexican Wow Zow? Because it's pretty good.
Wow Zow?
How about California Coast Head?
California SoCal? Can't you pick like Mexican, like can't you pick a Spanish word? Like
Here, let me just Google some names. of
pollo?
weed. Okay, so only children. Greg, you wanted to say some nice things about only children. for
You're all
those-
selfish little pricks.
Nice. Okay, thank you everybody for tuning in.
I think that's good. We don't just leave.
I think that should
just,
be
that's
it.
good. Yeah, totally
Yeah.
awesome. That's a wrap.
Woo!
Okay, but can you guys wrap up the show this time?
Thanks for listening to Sibling Salon.